Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
My heart is ready to beat. I can feel the wind underneath my feet. I'm gonna jump over the moon, hands in the air, waving up like a balloon. I'm free as a bird, lost in the stars and waving down to earth. Don't know where I'm gonna land, but you gotta wobble before you stand.
The tangents and squeak continue all the way to episode 303 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. If you wake up tomorrow and find a white cat, it's me. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. So let's start off like we do, Rick, on the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
No, it was Holly having issues again.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Holly from Wisconsin. You guys were...
Holly's been plagued by
yeah.
gremlins, technology gremlins, since yesterday. But and this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hopefully gremlin free.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm not gonna lie, I almost blanked on my town. I don't know why. It's like the time of the year that I should remember the best. You know, Bethlehem,
Yes.
Christmas.
Yeah.
But my brain was like, where do I live again?
Who I am? Where am I? What? Who? Me?
Exactly.
What is going on? I'm struggling to keep track of what day of the week it is. There's several times today where I'm like, is it Monday or is it Tuesday? Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like,
I've been
it's
like that
Tuesday. I'm
all
like, no,
year.
it's Monday. Very.
You know, just because of the little fact of what you and I did last night, I'm thinking you were thinking.
Yeah, I was like, I already talked to Holly yesterday, so it must be Tuesday.
And you're like, wait a minute, no.
No, that's
It's
not
different.
right. Yeah, that was a. You have to be a patron for Gold Standard to be able to hear that right now. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till next week. Yeah, next week for it to
The
go,
17th, yep.
go out in the main feeds for everybody who's not a Patreon supporter. So, so if that's not an incentive to go on Patreon, I don't know what is.
So there's the plug for the day.
There's
Indeed.
we don't really have any news.
No, not really.
It's kind of quiet at the moment. So
There was that trailer of the KFC Lifetime movie.
yeah,
What?
we're not. No,
I
I'm not
know,
even gonna-
It was funny. It cracked me up.
That's just. I already watched someone on YouTube play through the
the
hot
dating simulator.
dating simulator with the hot Colonel Sanders. So I don't know why I watched that. It was suggested, and I was all like, "What is this?" And next thing I know, I'm watching the entire thing. Is just,
Yes,
those are minutes
it's-
I'm never gonna get back.
Mostly, I only mention it because I laughed so hard, and
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. So I'm like, okay, KFC, you guys. That was next on your bucket list, no pun intended, but there it is.
Yes, I don't know.
KFC.
Yeah. So if you really want to
It's
go look it
wild,
up,
and I saw
it's
what
on
you did there.
YouTube. It's a thing.
Yep.
If you really. Anyway, that's that's the news. That's what we have,
Yep.
which is kind of
Yeah.
everyone's. I saw this image on Facebook that had like a picture of a December calendar, and it was color coded, and it's like the first 4 days, yes, you pretend to work. The next 2 weeks, you've totally given up all pretense, and then the week of Christmas and New Year's, you eat and eat and eat and get fat, and then on New Year's Day you feel like I need to go exercise. So that was like, so we're in the range where we're like people who have stopped pretending to work.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why we have no fandom news.
Maybe.
So that's
Nobody's
what I'm
doing anything.
Yes.
They're just pretending. Oh. Yeah. So, but the only thing we've got is the poll for the book club is up.
Yep, just a second. I'm bringing that up as we speak. Oh, come on now. Okay, hold on.
So go vote
Okay.
on your.
Yes. Our choices. Hold on. I hate it when it bumps me to the app and I can't, because the app does not give you the poll. All
That's
right.
annoying.
Yeah, it is. Okay, our choices are The Wintertime Paradox, which is a whole bunch of Christmas story adventures, Flip Flop, Shakespeare's Notebook, and Doctor Who and the Cricket Men. The master book I did not put on the poll because it looks like the only version that's available is the electronic version. The physical isn't going to be till like mid-January, if not February. So TBD.
Fair enough.
Good. Yep. So it will be back on the poll, but not right now.
Yep. To be filling a space later.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there's that, and we don't have any feedback, so there's that.
Yeah.
You know we love reading, but sometimes it's hard to find time to physically sit down with a book, which is why the Five-ish Fangirls has proudly partnered with Audible. Audible is a leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs. Whatever makes you squee, there's a perfect listen for you. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals. Whether you're adventuring through time and space, running from dinosaurs, or capturing ghosts, with the free app, audiobooks go where you go. You can download titles and listen offline, anytime, anywhere. Even if you switch devices, you'll never lose your place. And right now, Five-ish Fangirls listeners can sign up for a free 30-day trial by going to audibletrial.com/5ishfangirls. That's 30 days to check out not only their huge collection of audiobooks, but also podcasts, guided wellness programs, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive Audible originals you won't find anywhere else. So continue the joy of reading with Audible. Don't see a title that trips your trigger one month? No problem. Your credit will roll over to the next month, and you can quit anytime and keep the books you've acquired forever. For more details and to sign up for your free 30-day trial, visit audibletrial.com/5ishfangirls. That's audibletrial.com/5ishfangirls. And now, back to the podcast.
So
we're just gonna mosey on down the line to this week's main topic, which Chrissy suggested. This should be an interesting discussion, not necessarily because usually with like movies, we can talk about the plot.
Yeah.
But because there are so many different versions of this movie,
true.
This is going to be we should almost start this discussion off by saying, which version did you watch?
Yes, because
otherwise we may have some. The version I saw said this happened. My version I watched.
Now. Okay, so this is the deal. So we're talking about Kiki's Delivery Service, which on the outset I will say right up front, this is my favorite Studio Ghibli movie. I know people love Spirited Away and they love Princess Mononoke, and I love those ones too. But Kiki's Delivery Service, or even Totoro. Totoro was my first one. Kiki is my favorite. I love that it's sweet and charming, and it's kind of one of those movies you can put on and just. I don't want to say like it's you can't pay attention to it, but it's just it's comforting. It's comfort food, but not in that lazy way. I mean, it's still Studio Ghibli. They still put out super high quality, especially in this time period we're talking about, where Miyazaki is very much involved in the proceedings. But so as with most things, especially in the 80s and 90s that come from Japan to North America, you will have several different versions of it. And, because a lot of the versions were cut for North American, or the translation wasn't very good, or I mean, just because it was so new, anime and Japanese animation. Sorry, Alex came in here right in the middle of me talking. Sorry, I thought I locked the door. So if you like, even just look on Wikipedia, you'll see like obviously there's the Japanese voice actors list,
Yeah,
and
there's
then
like the original Japanese version, and then they released a different cut for the Japanese airline.
Yes.
And then there was the first dub for the United States.
Yeah, which I'm looking at the list
which
here.
was done by Streamline.
Yeah. I mean,
in 1990, and then Disney did a dub when they got the distribution rights for it.
Yes, and I recognize some of these voice actors like Wendy Lee, Rusty Taylor's on here for the 1990 English dub. But yeah, Wendy Lee's been doing Japanese dub anime stuff forever. But then you get into the Disney version, which is the one I'm most familiar with,
and that's the version I watched.
Yeah, and that's the one I have. I have the Steelbook,
and it was the 96, 97 version. It was not the recut 2000 version or whatever year that was that they recut it.
Yeah, because in 96, because I bought the Steelbook not too long ago, because I was like, I do not have this on DVD. Why don't I have it? So I was looking and I was like, they have a Steelbook, Blu-ray, and DVD. Yoink. So I got that one. I'm like, wait, the music is different, because they had different music in the 96 version that was more, they made, or they wrote English lyrics, or well, even not just the lyrics, the music itself was different, which
was more Americanized.
More Americanized. So I'm like, especially that beginning song where she's flying, when she's leaving home first, and it sounds more like kind of a 50s big band sort of thing. I'm like, I don't remember this. Oh yeah, it was the song about flying, and I can't really remember it now,
because I have the digital 89 version through Amazon, and that had the original opening music in the Japanese language, no English.
Yeah.
So I don't know which cut I actually have, because it's the English dub.
Yeah, it's
that's probably the Streamline dub then.
Yeah, it probably is.
Okay.
Was Kirsten Dunst playing the?
Yes.
Or was it okay, so it was Kirsten Dunst.
Okay, so then that was the that was the recut that Disney did, where they put the Japanese music back in.
Yeah, so that would be the 2003 cut.
Yeah.
Okay, even though for some reason they have the 89 release date. Okay, makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean the 89, it was released in Japan in 89.
Yeah, so that's the original copyright.
Yeah,
essentially.
I know it's a lot to
see. I said this conversation was going to be interesting just based on which versions we watched.
Yeah, and with any anime, especially from this time period, because a lot of older anime is getting redubbed, just because back in the 90s, even 80s and 90s, it was so new, and so studios were like, well, we've got to make this as familiar and Americanized even as possible, which looking back on it, I'm like, I can understand why they did it that way, but I am glad that they're starting to be like, okay, we anime is a bigger deal in North America and around the world, so we can keep it as faithful to the original Japanese and still dub it, so like the translations are better, they keep the original music, and it's not like they don't switch out rice ball for donut for rice ball or something like that. So anyway, that's just kind of a quick overview of anime. I don't know, I'm sure our listeners, some of them are familiar with all this, but I know, Rachel, you're kind of a newbie a little bit at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the why, and a lot of anime fans kind of get really obnoxious about, oh, we can't ever listen to that version of the dub, and I'm just kind of like, go away.
Yeah,
because it's all I don't know. I don't hold with the the subtitle purist, or even the people who
It's like
really look
sub
down
versus
on.
dub.
Yeah, I'm really not, especially now that I have kids, and if I want to watch anime, I can't really sit and watch subtitles. I have
Right?
to,
Right.
yeah, and so it's. But I mean, there are people who prefer it and who aren't like really obnoxious about it, but there are some that I'm just like, yeah, there's a reason I just sit and watch anime, and I don't really participate in the fandom quite as much, just because some of those attitudes just grate on me. But that's me. So anyway, that's so yeah, so I got so
So
are we kind
is
of
the
all,
audience confused yet?
basically if you buy a DVD that was released since 2003, you're probably going to have the 2003 cut. If you are lucky enough to have the 1990 or even the Japanese airline version, holy cow, how'd you do that?
That's what my library had.
Oh,
Oh
really?
my goodness.
So, because at first I went through the online catalog to see what
Mhm.
was available through my library system, and I
Right.
actually requested the Blu-ray,
Mm-hmm.
but it was taking its sweet time because it would had to come from another branch.
Ah, yes.
So it was taking its sweet time. And I was like, I need to do my homework. So I just happened to be at my branch and I
Mhm.
went to look to see if they had a copy. And they did. So I just grabbed it, not knowing that there was a difference. I didn't know all the history and everything.
Yeah. I
So
guess
it
I should
wasn't
have
until
mentioned
after I
that.
watched it and then
Mm.
was reading up on it that I realized that I had the
Mm-hmm.
96, 97 version of it
Yeah.
with more of Phil Hartman's added lines
Yeah.
for
So,
Gigi.
mhm. Yeah, so I guess I should have mentioned that. That's my bad.
Yeah.
But
That's like the biggest difference, that like there's
Mhm.
the music difference
Mhm.
between the 90s and the 2000s Disney releases
Mhm.
is they took out the pop, more Americanized music and put the Japanese original
Mhm.
music back in, and then a lot of Gigi's lines that you hear in the 90s version is
Yeah.
a lot of Phil Hartman just ad-libbing,
Yeah,
putting
it
in
was
lines
it's
that
kind of like
were originally there, and they took those out.
Mhm. Yeah, it was more like he
And
had
the
like
ending's different too.
Yeah, they had like inner monologue for him or something. I remember that when I very first saw it. And then I saw this newer version, like, oh, okay. I mean, that's another thing, is they would add, any kind of anime or movie, they would add characters would just have weird inner monologue thoughts, just then their mouths weren't moving, but the script writers and the translators said, oh, hey, wouldn't this be funny if we put this here? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, in a lot of cases, like
yeah.
Gigi, he's saying things and you can't see him anyway. He's not in the shot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you don't know that his mouth isn't moving.
Right.
Mhm.
But if it's kind of, if it kind of feels like they're sort of fudging it to be like, oh, he could be speaking, he's just not really on screen, then most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, but most of the time, it's likely that was an add-in by either the actor or the English translator or script writer.
Yeah.
So that's for the dub.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to see the newer version where they take that out and you're like, but wait, I remember, oh yeah, I remember a line being here, but it's really not.
Yeah, because they wanted it to be closer to the original script.
Yes.
Where Gigi doesn't say nearly as much.
Yeah. And basically all the translation is just a way to get over the language barrier, so that you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
In your and understand it.
Yeah, but I'm with a lot of people. I'm glad that the original Disney dub is the version I saw, and I would probably be upset knowing now that there's a version out there that it may be true to the original script, but that eliminates a lot of Phil Hartman's work.
That is true.
It's like one of the last things he did before he died.
Yeah.
So,
because as soon as I heard Gigi, I was like, "Ooh, I like you. You got sass. I like this."
Yeah.
More Gigi, please.
Yes, Gigi is amazing. He's wonderful. He's just kind of a perfect foil to Kiki as
Yes.
well, and like because I read the book because the book was recently the original Japanese book was recently translated in English like a year or so ago. And there's a whole series of them, and I think the movie actually takes bits and pieces from several of the books, but the first one is out in English, and it goes into more of like the witch culture, and it's all because Gigi is her companion, but and the whole thing with her not being able to hear him anymore is supposed to be like that's her growing up and being able to be a witch on her own, because the companion or the familiar is more for the younger witches, so because Gigi has been with her since she was a baby.
Okay.
But her mother doesn't. Well, I think her mother has a familiar, if I remember right. I could be getting this wrong, but the familiar doesn't really show up in the story much because it's somewhere else. Just but yeah. So
Gigi reminds me a lot of Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah.
Too.
yes, there is a lot of that. In fact, if I remember right, this was released in North America during while Sabrina the Teenage Witch was on TV. I don't know if that was coincidence that was. I mean, it could have just been here's stories about witches and they have black cats. Very different witches, but witches.
Like this witch doesn't need to hide the fact that she's a witch.
No, like that's how she introduces herself. My name is Kiki and I'm a witch. And everybody loves her for it. And it's kind of more, I mean, in this world, like every town has a witch, or they should. And that's why when witches turn 13, they go out and they're like, I'm going to go, strike out on my own and do her training. But it's, but yeah, it's like, the whole point is like she doesn't have a lot of powers. Like she has like one power, and that was sort of the idea. The author of the book, and I'm going to try to pronounce her name properly because I know how to do this. I just have to look at it while I do it. Aiko Kadono. Her idea was, they like witches. They don't have like they can't fix all their problems with magic. They have like one skill that they cultivate and hone, and like Kiki's mom's skill is creating medicine for people, and she sells it in their town. Kiki's skill is flying, and so she creates she builds her own business. She's a delivery girl, and she does very well in the book. Each chapter she just goes from delivery to delivery, and then by the end she has this big group of friends that all know her in town, and so now she's part of the town, whereas in the beginning she comes in, nobody knows her, and they're kind of wary of her because some of them are like, well, I've never, witches, what? But then there's people like Osono who are just like, yes, come here, and or the old ladies, or the old lady who's like, oh, my grandmother told me about witches, and she's excited and tries out her broom and everything, and it's so cute.
Yeah. Well, and I was wondering with that kind of little knowing wink that Osana and her husband give her, it's just like, wait a minute, are you a witch and you're just going to take maternity leave? So you're letting Kiki come in? I'm just like, I wonder.
I mean, yeah, there is some of that. Like, you're not quite sure, like with Osono, and I love Osono. Just how she just takes everything in stride. She's like, oh yeah, you're a witch. Yes, you can live in the thing up there, or in the garret, and yes, you can wash my bakery, and you can use my phone, and just all these things. And you just given the and I think it's kind of a mark of a Miyazaki film that things aren't unnecessarily complicated. Like in some of the movies, the conflict. There's some really big conflicts in a Studio Ghibli movie, like Princess Mononoke has really big ones, but they're not like big epic like Western movies do. Like you think of Avengers or something like that,
or even like Frozen.
Or
if you stay in the Disney bubble,
yeah, Frozen. It's like everything has to be this big, grand, epic thing, which is fine for that sort of thing. But then you have a movie like Kiki's Delivery Service, and it's just the conflicts are these small little things. Like on the way to delivering a birthday present, she gets attacked by crows, or she falls. She gets blown off course. She falls into a crow's nest, and they attack her, and she realizes that she's dropped the little toy, and she has to figure out, well, how do I deliver this? And it's her first delivery. How do I make this delivery and get the toy back and all these things? And and she figures it out just on her wits, because her magic doesn't. But it's just it's just a simple little story, and in the process she meets an artist named Ursula that's living in the woods drawing crows, and that's just what she does. She's there to make friends and to build her skills and to help people, and it's a very simple, very, very personal story.
That's the biggest thing, is the biggest conflict that Kiki experiences is within herself.
Yes.
She gets like Ursula says, essentially artist block, or writer's block, where she's just gotten so frustrated with herself that she can't tap into the magic within her to be able to fly. And it's not till Tombo, this boy who's been annoying her, has a one-track mind, and it's not about girls, it's all about flying. He there's this whole and I figured out that was probably going to be something that came into play later, because the first time we meet Kiki is she's just out listening to the wireless radio, and they're talking about this airship, this blimp, Zeppelin type thing is going to be flying by their part of the world in the next few days, and this is big to do, because this world that Kiki lives in is supposed to be kind of a European part of the world, but both of the world wars never occurred.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of got that idyllic.
Yeah, it's very idyllic. Not quite utopian, but it's very, very idyllic, where almost every day it's blue skies and everybody's friendly to each other, and it's everybody just minds their business, but they're still relatively pleasant to each other. But it talks about this big Zeppelin or whatever, and I'm like, it's probably gonna come into play later.
Which it does.
It does.
It's kind of, when you're talking about
World Wars, they didn't know about the Hindenburg, because that never happened.
Yes.
So
it's kind of hard to do kind of slice of life, which is what this movie is, the slice of life genre, and especially with an ending where you're with theatrical audiences, at least in the North America. I don't really know how it is in Japan, although it might be similar. You expect this big grand climax, and this movie is just she's just doing her business. She's learning her skills. So to have the big rescue at the end, and to have her figure out how to fly on a janitor's push broom, of all things. The only thing that would have been funnier would have been a mop, but or a vacuum cleaner.
I don't think vacuum cleaners existed yet.
Probably not. So yeah, it's
not quite hocus pocus.
Yeah, it's this big set piece with the Zeppelin falling down, and they're trying to drift over to the clock so they can get off. And so the ending works. It's just it and I don't want to say it comes out of nowhere. It feels a little odd for the rest of the story, but it's just enough that I'm okay with it. Because it's Kiki doesn't, because it feels like she needs that crisis to figure things out, at least in this version of the story.
Well, she needs something to she's having a moment of self-crisis. And she's so stuck in her own head, almost in a way, she's I got to figure out, like, I've always just been able to fly and I haven't really thought about how I did it. I just did it. And she's like, now I got to really look and see how did I figure out in the first place. And I should probably way overthinking it more than anything.
Yeah.
So she's so stuck in her own head that it takes like this crisis essentially with Tombo to give her the swift kick in the pants that she needs to
Yeah.
stop moping and get out of her own head and be like, just do it, It's like, it's like you can do it. You've got the power to fly. Just,
Right.
get over your own worries and anxieties and just do it.
Well, too, I'm also wondering if she wasn't still reeling from how the granddaughter reacted to her bringing the pie that she helped bake with the girl's
Right.
grandma,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and then getting
Yes.
sick. So I'm wondering if that didn't have something to do with it too, because it seemed to me that she just hit it off with that grandma
Oh yeah.
Oh
and
yeah.
and the other lady that was there, that she almost adopted them to her family. So when she heard the granddaughter just kind of diss everything, I
Right.
think it was disheartening to her,
Mhm.
yes.
and that had
Very.
something to do with it too.
Very much so. I mean, part of it is, she comes from a small town where, witches, like she, from where she lives, like witches are a thing and everyone accepts it, and but everyone's friendly and helps each other, and whatever problems they have, they figure it out. And she works hard. She really like she is working hard. She's working at the bakery, she's working at her delivery service, and she
Mhm.
sees these other kids who are, I mean, someone even says like, oh, you're so young to be out on your own.
Like,
And so
she's working at her age?
yeah, like owning her own business, like come on.
Yeah.
But she sees these kids, these girls are out, having fun, doing fun things, dating boys or all that stuff, and she's a working woman, and sometimes she looks at that and like, oh, I kind of want to, she wishes she could do that. And but she's like, well, if I work hard, I'm gonna get this, and people will like me, and people will like what I do. And yeah, that especially the delivery of the herring pie to the granddaughter,
Just
that one,
sounds so gross.
well, yeah.
But I don't like fish, so
Yeah. And in Japan, fish is everywhere.
yeah, it's like,
Yes.
if it's like, herring and pumpkin, and I'm like,
yeah.
just
Well, and the mom,
if it was
the mom,
another protein, I'd probably be way more for it. But it's
Yeah.
I don't
well,
like
the
fish.
mom even said when the girl's like, "Oh, grandma sent one of her herring pies." The mom goes, "Oh, herring, yum!" Like
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to catch, but it's there. So yeah, Kiki's just like, and she's not confrontational, so she's not going to be like, "How dare you? We worked so hard, and I flew in the rain and everything."
Mhm.
But so yeah, and she's trying to finish up so she can have time to go to the party that Tombo invited her to, and to have that be the reaction, the reward, I guess, for what she's done. It's just kind of like, think about any time, after, when you're in college or your first job or something, and you're looking forward to it, and something goes wrong, and you're just like, oh no, what do I do, or what did I do wrong? And I don't know, maybe I'm, you probably you probably felt this way, and you just are like, ugh, what did I do? And it's like, well, really nothing. It's just people are jerks. And that's one thing Kiki has to learn. Even though she's got a Sono who's her friend, and Gigi's her friend, and even Tombo to a degree is kind of, she's kind of tolerates him in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then they eventually do become friends, because he's, I don't know, I think he likes her, but he has no idea what she's like, because he just calls her Miss Witch, because he doesn't even know her name for a long time. And all he knows is she can fly, and that's enough for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, get me off of this ground. I want to be up in the air.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, you can just jump on your broom and go, and I have to pedal. And it's like, well, you pedaled, you didn't even go. You didn't get up anywhere, and it broke. Poor guy. So I was trying to think what else. So Brittany, what were your thoughts? Was you like what? Do you know what version you ended up with? I don't think we ever asked you that.
I think it's the newest one.
Okay.
That's one HBO would have. That's
Yeah,
the one I love.
that probably is the one that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Like I've seen this before, but I can't remember if I've seen the other any of the other versions.
Yeah.
And like pretty much like everything you all said is, I agree. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, this is a pretty family friendly, kid friendly movie,
Yes.
so it's not overly complicated.
No, it's really not. And and that's not to say, because sometimes you think, oh, it's rated G, oh, it must be kind of, too simple or simplistic. But but this is Studio Ghibli does this a lot. Is they have the family friendly thing, and they don't like go out of their way to like mask it under like innuendo or poop jokes or stuff like that. They just tell a story, and if it's family friendly, that's what they tell. And it's, I mean, they are, they do things. I'll bring up Princess Mononoke because that's one that's very violent and very gory, although it's only quote unquote only PG-13. But there's like blood and beheadings and a bunch of other stuff. But I mean, it's kind of like you look at the different movies that Studio Ghibli's made, and it's just kind of like they find ideas, or like this is adapted from a book, and they just are like whatever's intriguing to them, they just do it. And whatever serves the story is what they do. I'm just kind of looking through here on the Wikipedia page. I mean, they talked about how the Disney dub, like they originally when they did the dub in '96, it was straight up that Miyazaki was the one to approve the translation changes of any of that they had. In fact, that's one thing that he was very adamant about. I remember reading this story because some of his earlier movies, especially Nausicaa and I think Totoro had this too, like they just really cut it up. Well, in Nausicaa they did a butch job on it originally, and he was not happy about that, and I can understand why. So like the part of the agreement was of letting Disney do the dub, or do the redubbing of his films was, he has to approve the translations and the script changes if any of them are made. So people can, people criticize Disney for a variety of things, rightly or wrongly so. This one they did right.
Yeah.
By abiding by Hayao Miyazaki's wishes and working with him even in making sure that the translation was faithful as possible. So and even later with the later version they've redone. Although yeah, it is kind of sad we lose a lot of Phil Hartman's work in some of that, and that's, I don't know what the answer is there. I kind of wish we could have both versions.
Yeah, and like that. Yeah, because from what I understand, if you wanted to go out and buy a copy now, and if I hadn't, if I had gotten that Blu-ray copy from the library in time and watched it instead, my guess is that's the
that would be
cut Disney version.
Yeah,
it would have been for sure.
So it's like the version that I happen to watch just happens to be a old, old DVD copy that you just can't go out and buy anymore. It's just my library. They don't, they hold on to things. So they just happen to have a really old version. So.
Yeah, and bless them for it.
I wish it was like they could have like, if it was available, like have like each version, like have the original Japanese version and have the The-
We ask that of Star Wars. Can we have the original theatrical along with the
That's
special
true.
edition
Yeah,
stuff?
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, why can't we? And so yeah, I mean, people complain about Star Wars doing that. Well, we'll stick with anime. The original Sailor Moon dub, which is the one I saw originally on Cartoon Network in the '90s. You can't buy that anywhere, and it's
No.
never going to see the light of day. Even though
It's like trying to find old, some Doctor Who stories.
yeah,
Right.
I mean,
But
this wasn't they taped over the tapes. It was the original creators hated
Yeah.
it so much that they're
Mhm.
like, no, you're not. But then the fans are like, but why?
Yeah.
And I actually do. I do have some copies because you couldn't find it anywhere for years and years, so I didn't feel bad about downloading it.
Right.
It's like,
Now with the Star Wars,
uh,
early 2000s, like StarWars.com or the Star Wars store
Mhm.
had a 2-disc DVD set of Star Wars through Jedi. The first discs out of each of the movies was the special edition. The second disc was the theatrical,
When did they
non-specialized.
stop doing that?
Then they stopped doing that. Those are hard. I have my copies. One of each, and I guard those DVDs with my life because I know how hard it is to find.
That's why
I did
we
a
have
search
the
on Amazon.
Yeah.
It was sticker shock for. You couldn't find the New Hope, but you could find Empire and Jedi, and it was a little pricey. I could just imagine what a New Hope goes for.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
no
like,
kidding.
it's like I said, it's like some of those, not the Doctor Who stuff that's been, erased from history, but there are some where like just individual stories for whatever reason they like released them on DVD or VHS like once and they've not done it again. And if you go online, you're going to pay out the nose for it if you're a completionist.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
although now they're doing the Blu-ray, like, steelbook, fancy box sets for each Doctor. So that,
Yeah, so-
instead
so
of
like-
having to buy individual stories, you can buy complete seasons, which is nice.
Yeah, it's like, why would
But
you do
yeah,
that before?
it'd be,
But anyway.
yeah, it'd be kind of, I think, I don't know if Disney, I don't know. I don't think I read somewhere that Disney doesn't have the distribution rights for this anymore.
They still do, because I just did
Yeah.
a search and it's
Yeah.
like it's on their website. You can buy the DVD or
Yeah.
the Blu-ray directly
But
from
yeah,
them.
they would make a pretty penny if they released like a box set with like the Japanese version and both of the
Yes.
Disney dub cuts.
They would. I mean, I have the Steelbook, which is just the DVD and the Blu-ray, and the new cut with the English dub and the newer one, and then some special features. But I'd buy that again for all that extra, just to see the difference and just to see like, well, what I'm missing out on, because it feels like, well, you made it, you released it, can't we have it?
Right?
But yeah, so yeah, Disney still has the distribution rights for like the DVD, Blu-ray sort of thing. Although all the Ghibli movies are streaming, they're on HBO Max.
Yep.
I'm not sure why. I
think they'd be on Disney Plus, but
I would think so, but maybe maybe Studio Ghibli directly came to some agreement with Warner Brothers, and it's like it's kind of an interesting situation, and I don't know all the details, and I don't know if anyone.
And because I watched, like I said, I watched it through HBO Max, and like I remember one of the logos was G Kids, which I've actually never heard of before. So I don't know if that might be.
Well, G Kids is I think it's the Ghibli distributing arm of in North America. So okay, so on my Steelbook, on my Steelbook it has the G Kids logo. And I'm trying to see if there's like anything saying Disney specifically, but there's not. I mean, this is a Steelbook, so it might be something a little different. But it's and they're the ones that do the theatrical. Because last year they did it's like Ghibli Fest. So every month at certain theaters they release, or they have special screenings of Studio Ghibli movies in Japanese and dubbed, just depending on what day you pick. And we went and saw a few last year.
In 2011, G Kids acquired the North American theatrical distribution rights. Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment retains the home video rights.
Okay.
And then in 2013, G Kids acquired all the US and Canadian distribution rights to from Up on Poppy Hill, because Disney passed on it.
Mm-hmm. That one's a newer one, I believe.
Yeah, and they now distribute all of the ones that Disney deems too mature.
Which is funny because I think did they dub Princess Mononoke? Now I am.
Yeah, and then in 2017, Disney relinquished its home video rights, with the exception of The Wind Rises, which they had until this year to G Kids.
So
but Disney still handles some distribution in Japan and Taiwan.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at Disney's website right now and it lists Kiki's delivery service. Get it now, Blu-ray and DVD. You can buy it. I'm like, what? Really? Amazon, Disney Store. Huh. Interesting.
So now Shout Factory does most of the releases.
And they're now I can't remember. I thought they were a dubbing company, but now I'm second guessing myself, so don't quote me on that.
Don't you just love business?
I know, especially when it comes to the just anime distribution rights, from Japan or even other countries. It's just kind of like it goes all over the place. And it's a little it's hard to keep track of.
Because it's not like, well, I mean, some other movies they will dub them for in other languages for other audiences,
right?
But a lot of times it doesn't go through the multiple changes like a movie like this has, where they took something that's distinctly Japanese and made for Japanese audiences in Japan, and trying to change it so that it caters to a wider international potential market to make money from. So it's as much as people complain about other studios, like Disney and other studios making movies that come from here in the United States and whitewashing or whatever to make movies more palatable to the largest market possible. They do that outside of the US too, and this is an example right there. So
it really is. And I mean, with talking about localizing something, even with the changing certain calling a rice ball a donut, that's always my go-to example of that. It's like I can understand. Or
just when Kiki goes to the bakery for the first time, and in the version I watched, Osono offers her hot chocolate, and then the original version it's coffee, but Disney didn't think 13-year-olds should be drinking coffee.
Yeah. that kind of thing. There's a lot of that. I mean, and then some of that is cultural stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll say this, because people do get kind of not necessarily with Kiki's delivery service, but with other anime too. They get really upset about the panty shots, and where that's something that is risque in America, the West. In Japan, it's actually a sign of innocence. It's kind of, it's one of those cultural things that it's like hard to wrap your mind around, because that's not your culture. That's not what you are familiar with. You're used to it. So so there are people who get really upset about that in anime in general. And I'm like watching this very sweet, very cute movie about a 13-year-old witch, and she's on a broom wearing a dress, it flies up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
I didn't necessarily think of it as like, oh, it's her panties. I was thinking more like pantaloons, like bloomers.
The design does help a little bit. I have seen people like get really upset about that, and I'm just
like, oh, we're looking up her skirt. Oh no!
It's like she's on a broom, she's wearing a black dress, and like
she's on a broom. It's windy. Things happen.
Yes.
Yep.
It's like, what do you expect her to do? Sit side saddle, and then she won't be able to control it as well.
No,
right.
No. But
not that she really has a lot of control over it the way she's writing it anyway.
And something tells me I think pants were probably frowned upon in time setting for ladies.
Yeah. Well,
like at one point the Ursula thinks that she looked more like a guy.
Because the guy, the truck that they were hitchhiking, they were like here, no one can resist two beautiful girls or two pretty girls hitchhiking, and the guy's like, I thought you were a dude. That's somebody said, and she was like, well, I guess the way I'm dressed, sure. I mean, it's just funny how everybody in this, for the most part, if they give you, if you get insulted, they just kind of like, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. or even when Kiki at the beginning, she's saying goodbye to her parents and everyone in town, and she's like, I've got this broom, I made it this morning, and her mom's like, no, you're taking my broom. If that scene had been written, from an American studio, they'd have been like, Kiki would have been like, no, I made this, I'm gonna do it, it's mine. But instead, Gigi's like, no, we're taking your mom's broom because it's more reliable and than your broom. You can make a nice one later, but for this first trip, we're taking your mother's broom. And she goes along with it because her mom's been training her to this point.
There's so many spots where I'm like, if this was an American movie, the movie would be twice as long because there would have to be some crazy conflict. Like when Kiki doesn't make it to the party, and she ends up falling ill, and then when she finally sees Tombo again, and she's like, I'm sorry I didn't make it to the party, and he's like, it's okay, I'm sorry you got so sick. Like, if this was an American movie, they would have had a big old fight over it and not talk to each other for weeks.
But in this they're like, oh, I understand, it rains, or you had a job and you got hung up on it and you get sick and I feel bad for you, and but she feels bad for missing his thing because it was important to him. And it's like, wow, people actually communicating and relating to each other like people. This is amazing,
right?
Yes.
Like human beings, and that's I mean, that's one thing I do love about this movie is just all the little life things. It's like, it feels, I mean, people talk so much about movies being relatable, and there has to be all these this checklist of things that a movie must have in order to be relatable to a wide amount of people. And I'm like, just treat them like people, like this. I mean, they're friends. They want to, they want to get to know each other and understand each other. Yeah, you cut each other a little bit of slack, and that's just, that's one thing I really like about this is like, you don't drag out this whole big fight like you were saying, Rachel. Yeah, they would have weeks and weeks. They wouldn't have talked to each other, and it'd been like, oh, come on. But no, we're like, cut the drama. We got a bike to fly.
Yeah, pancakes to eat.
And pancakes.
Yeah. So yeah, this was cute. I don't know if this is necessarily one I would go back to.
Well, I do. Yeah. I do recognize I'm kind of an oddball in that I love this one so much because most of the time people love Spirited Away, and rightly so. That one's
it's a good one.
It's a really good one, and Princess Mononoke is a big one that people like. What else? Like Howl's Moving Castle. There's so many movies, and so many Studio Ghibli movies, and I do not profess to have seen all of them.
This is the only one I've seen.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot, and this one, it's endearing, and I love it.
So Rachel, since this is the first one you've ever seen, are you planning on watching any more Studio Ghibli movies?
I don't know if I'll go out of my way to do it. But if we decide to do another one, I'll watch it. So.
I've got a couple right now.
I recognize.
Max and I'm going to check out.
Yeah, I know, like Toronto when I see him, but yeah. And I've known Kiki when like I see like people dressed up as her.
Like, oh
yeah, and stuff like you see the black dress and the big bow and a broom, and I'm like, Kiki's delivery. So like I recognize it. I knew what it was, but I was just like, yeah. Anime is just not. It's not one of those. Although that Chauncey says it's a rabbit hole, I'm not allowed to go down.
Well, it's an interesting rabbit hole.
That's probably wise.
Yeah. I'm guessing the Studio Ghibli is probably safe.
Yeah, because Ghibli is.
Because I can be like, it's Disney, see?
Yeah. Well, and it's movies. It's not like whole series. So like you can and there's never been a sequel to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure there's never been a sequel from Ghibli. So you can just watch one movie and enjoy it as its own thing and not be like, oh, I need to go find a gazillion sequels and the TV show and blah blah blah, all this other stuff. I mean there are anime that like it goes on like and on and on and on, and there's musicals and there's this and there's that, but no, if you stick with Studio Ghibli, if you don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but you're maybe mildly interested, it's you could do a lot worse. But few better.
Yeah. I see that now.
Yes. Looking at the list, like this one, I'm surprised I haven't seen because it's based off one of my favorite books as a kid. So I need to watch it soon.
Which one is it?
The Secret World of Ariadne.
Arietti.
It's based off the Borrows. I love that book.
Well, get on there and watch them. That one I remember seeing advertised in theaters. I haven't seen it. We don't have an HBO Max subscription. Maybe I need to fix that. Like, I think we need it so I can. Jared and I, we both love anime and we love Studio Ghibli films. And I mean, he's certainly never seen everything, but he really, like, when we saw that poster at our theater a year or so ago, we were like, oh, we need to go see all these in the theater, and it was fun. Really liked it, and I'm like, I hope that Corona-chan goes somewhere else so we can go back and like with all the craziness of movies are going to start just going straight to streaming and or the same day as theaters. I'm like, there are some movies that are worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah, very much so.
I was like looking up the in the UK for Ariadne, I don't think it's gonna be the one that's here in US. It's Tom Holland's first credit. He played Sean. Like, but I don't know if like that's gonna be the version you can find here in nature because it says English UK. So.
Well, you'll have to find out. Yeah, I'm trying to think, what else could I say about this? It's a fun, sweet movie. It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm thinking, you mentioned cosplay. I'm like, I should cosplay Kiki one time, and it's an easy one to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just need like a black dress,
and a big red bow,
and a black cat.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe cart around a bow, or a broom. Although one thing I always love about this, and I didn't know this until I read the novel, is Aiko Kadono. She got the idea because her daughter drew a picture of a witch riding a broom that had a radio hanging from the handle.
No.
With a big bow. And she was like, oh, what is this witch doing? What's her life like? Where is she going? And so that image like just spawned the whole thing. And it's, I don't know, just reading her forward to when I read the book, because she had a little snippet in there. It was specifically for, like, she wrote, I'm sure she wrote it in Japanese and it was translated, but she wrote it specifically for the English translation, like, to be, saying that she was happy that more people would be able to read her story. and it's just reading it. I'm just like, oh, you are so totally the author who wrote Kiki's Delivery Service because you are adorable.
I love hearing stories like that when like you hear like, oh, this story is because of something my child drew or something my child's like I love those kind of stories. Like, oh,
yeah, and it's just so I'm really hoping that they get that they're able to translate the rest of the Kiki series into English because I would love to read it. It kind of reminded me a lot of like Paddington, so that those kind of those chapter books that are really, you know, kind of the slice of life. Basically, it's that simple sweet story. The main character goes on an adventure in their town, and it's kind of crazy for a while, and then it all settles down, and it's just really just calming and sweet, and I love that kind of stuff. So like now that I think about it, I love Paddington growing up, so maybe that's why I love Kiki, because it's the same kind of thing. You go to a new place, and you know this is who you are. You're kind of the oddball out. I mean, you have a talking bear or a witch on a broom, and everyone just kind of accepts it. It's like, yep, that's who they are. That's Paddington. That's Kiki. And
maybe
they're part of our town. So I'm like, hey. So anyway, so if you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. Go find it. It's find it at the library or wherever you want to find it. Probably on Amazon, I'm sure. Like Kindle,
it is. I just really looked it up.
Yeah,
you can get it for $10. $10 hardcover. $10 Kindle.
So and if you are looking to buy it, then go through our website to our Amazon affiliate link first.
Shameless plug. I am shameless. Speaking of which,
Speaking of which, but yeah, I mean, anyone else want to have anything to say? I mean, I feel like this was kind of short, but it's a short and sweet movie.
Yeah.
I mean, for this being my first introduction, if people are wanting to cut their teeth, I think this is the one to get you started.
Yeah, definitely.
I fell in love. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, and
can I have some more?
Yeah. Well, go read the book, because the book is different, because the movie takes elements from the other books in the series. So it's not a straight translation or a straight adaptation, I should say, but it's still great. And of course, the cover is Kiki flying on a broom with the radio, and Gigi is hanging on the back of the
hanging on for dear life.
Yes. And now that Brittany, you said that the hardcover is like $10. I'm like, I need it now, because I got it from the library. I don't actually have the book. I'm like, Christmas is coming. I can justify this.
Stocking stuffer.
And if you buy it now, according to Amazon, it arrives before Christmas.
Yay, Christmas. It's like, Jared, you're gonna wrap this for me and give it to me, right?
I'll act surprised, I promise.
Yes, sweetheart. Here's your gift to me from me. Yeah.
Yep. This is what I want. Thank you, please, and thank you. But yeah. So anyway, if any of our listeners have seen Kiki's Delivery Service or read the book or any Studio Ghibli, I don't know. It might be a topic we revisit from time to time. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch them, but if we want to do another one, I will.
Yeah.
I will do it.
Yeah. But yeah, send us your feedback. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com, and find our links to all of our social media, to all of the places you can support us. Like I said, Amazon link. If you're still doing some last minute Christmas shopping, that visit our website first and go to the link, and you just do your stuff. We get a little referral bonus, and we all win. You don't have to pay anything extra. We also have Patreon. We have our Redbubble store and our Audible link. You can download us on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. We have our YouTube channel. Facebook, as always, we share things from as we find them, and we love getting the comments from all of our friends and listeners. Hopefully, we're helping entertain you throughout the day. And also check out our Instagram And as always, we thank you for all of your support, whether it is buying through our Amazon store or our Audible link, or being a Patreon or a patron on Patreon, or listening to us or sending feedback. Whatever it is you do, we're glad that you're out there. We're glad that you enjoy what we're doing, and we will continue to do that because we love you guys and hope that you're doing well in this season, if it's cold, warm, whatever, wherever it is, wherever you are. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Love you guys.
Yep. All right. With that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Bethlehem saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now I want pancakes.
But if all you eat is pancakes, you'll get fat.
Bye.